Stability and instability. Stability plays a significant role in basketball, as many players are expected to be agile and have high balance. Stability is the ability to balance and remain in control of yourself when performing a movement or standing up. This is because in basketball, players are turning and changing directions quickly throughout, for example, trying to dribble around a player. Stability can depend on a number of factors, including the center of mass. Mass is different to weight, as mass is the amount of material in the body and does not include gravity. The center of mass is usually around the point of the stomach for men and thighs for women when standing in a natural position, as it is where all mass is balanced in every direction. This can then change depending on the shape of the body slash object and can also be outside of the body. For example, when shooting a basketball, the center of mass will become different during the execution phase, as opposed to the preparation and recovery, as the body has moved and the hand will be in the air, and the shooter may have jumped or bent slightly, causing the center of mass to change, likely to around the chest. As the ball will be positioned in the air when held, this will also contribute to the center of mass, as it is added weight, so the center of mass will be moved up again. So, the center of mass is the point where the body is balanced at all levels, and the line of gravity will act through this point towards the ground. It is important to understand as the position of the line of gravity affects stability. For example, if the line is acting inside the bases of support, the athlete is likely to remain stable, whereas if the line drifts out of the base, the athlete will become less stable and less balanced. This is why you may see athletes in basketball with a wide stance, as it gives them a wide base of support, giving them more stability, as the line of gravity is more likely to act through it. In basketball, it is good to have a low center of mass, as this allows a player to become more agile and quickly turn past opponents. This is why many taller players, who won't have a low center of mass, will have a wider stance, as they would usually have a higher center of gravity, meaning they are less stable, and therefore become more stable by taking a wider stance. Another influence on stability is the point of contact. This is because the more points of contact there are on the ground, usually means the more stable an athlete is, as their mass is distributed to more bases. For example, a player with 2 points of contact on the ground, for example standing up, would be much harder to push over and become unstable than a player with 1 point of contact on the ground, standing on one leg. Within the numerical model, we also look at forces and the effects it have on both performers and objects. A force can be applied in any direction and causes the object to move, and causes the object it is acting on to move in the direction where the force is greater than the opposing force. Forces are a vector, meaning that it has both a magnitude, the size of the force, and a direction. They are extremely important in every type of sport, with or without a ball, or any other external object, as it can be applied both internally and externally. Internal force can be seen through contractions from muscles inside the body, like a pull in swimming, for example, as the muscles contract to pull the athlete through the water. Similarly, they can also produce a pushing motion, like in a scrum in rugby, that pushes the athlete forward with power. Of course, this can also be applied in basketball. In a basketball context, for example, the muscles will contract to push against the floor and move the athlete forward when running. There are also external forces which act on the object/athlete, usually causing the initial force to be resisted. For example, if a basketball player applied an external force onto the ball when shooting, it will be pushed into the air and towards the basket. At this point, a number of forces will be acting on the ball, as not only will it have the applied force that it has pushed on it upwards, but will have an opposite force of air resistance and drag that is acting like friction, slightly decelerating the ball. It will also have the force of gravity and mass acting downwards on the ball, opposing the upwards motion that ultimately causes the ball to return to the ground. Force is a vector, and therefore, because force is a vector, it can be displayed with an arrow showing the direction and the size, with the direction and the size of the arrow representing the magnitude. For example, when running, the horizontal forces would be unbalanced, and therefore the forward arrow would be larger than the backwards arrow representing air resistance. The extent to which these forces affect the object is down to its inertia. Inertia is the tendency to remain at rest or in uniform motion. This is dependent on the mass of the object, as an object with a larger mass will have a larger inertia, meaning it will take a bigger force to change the motion of the object. For example, a bowling ball will have a larger inertia than a basketball, meaning it will take a larger force to move, as we know. This is explained further in Newton's first law. Force can have 5 effects on the object. It can change it from rest to motion, like kicking a ball at rest. It can change the direction, like returning a pass in basketball. It can accelerate the object, kicking an already moving ball with a higher applied force. It can decelerate an object, like reaching out to catch a basketball and bringing it into the body. And it can change the shape of an object, as can be seen with the PowerPoint with the baseball and bat. There are also direct and eccentric forces. Eccentric forces is a force that does not pass through the centre of mass, causing it to move, producing translation and rotation. The rotation is caused because it is not hitting the centre. For example, hitting a baseball, if the bat does not hit the centre, it is likely that it will slice the ball and cause it to move with a lot of rotation. Newton's 3 laws of motion. Newton's first law is the law of inertia. As stated before, this is the reluctance for the object to move, whether stationary or in motion. This law backs up this, as it states that every body at rest or with constant velocity will remain in this state until a force is acted on it. For example, at rest, a basketball will not move unless an external force is acted on it, like a push that will cause it to move. Similarly, a rolling basketball would continue rolling if there was no forces acting on it. However, this is almost impossible, as friction in this case would act on it, causing it to slow down and ultimately stop. This would also be seen if the basketball hit a wall, as it would decelerate and cause it to stop or change direction. The second Newton law is the law of acceleration, stating that the force you have is equal to the mass multiplied by the acceleration, F equals ma. This is because the acceleration is proportional to the magnitude of the net force in the same direction, and the mass is inversely proportional to the acceleration. This can be seen at almost any point in basketball, as both running, shooting, and passing involve a force and a mass, so the acceleration can be calculated. The final law is the action-reaction law. It states every action has an equal and opposite reaction. This can be seen with running and sprints during a basketball game, as the force we exert against the ground provides an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, to improve speed and acceleration, it is important that the foot pushes backwards as well as onto the floor, so the opposite reaction will therefore act forwards, pushing the athlete further and quicker.